Which one am I doing first? Champions looks like. Okay.
Yeah, I got the Avengers and you got the Champions.
Yeah. All right. Take a sip of water.
Okay.
All right. Ready?
Yep.
Cool. All right. 3, 2, 1. Hey there, Marvel fans. There's always time for Spider-Man's insipid jokes. Or is there?
Hear about Wolverine disarming Deadpool.
Thor no more?
All this and more on this week's episode of the 6 Months Behind podcast.
Three, 2, 1.
What is up? This is the 6 Months Behind podcast for the week of 7/23/18. I am Pat.
And I am Sean.
Dude, yeah. I like that, man. This week we are CB Cebulski, Joe Quesada, Dan Buckley, and Alan Fine, and everybody else involved with Marvel because they managed to go to Comic-Con and not do anything stupid or say anything stupid or like cancel 10 books and make people mad. So I'm proud of them.
Yeah, they didn't have to run around the convention floor and literally snatch comic books out of people's hands because they decided to make an Iron Man book in conjunction with a literal arms manufacturer.
Yeah, you know, they didn't insult women or minorities. They and these are all things they've done in the last year. So, hey, sometimes you just, when you don't do anything wrong, you do something right.
Yeah, dude, the last at least 2 or 3 Comic-Cons for Marvel, they've always had some sort of PR gaffe. And you could make the argument the James Gunn thing happened, but Marvel Publishing had nothing to do with that. So
there's quite a movement to keep him on the Guardians film.
Yeah. You know, we've talked about this before, maybe not on the air, but and I had this conversation with some coworkers yesterday. The problem that I have had with this is that it was a decade ago, and you're excuse me, I don't know what's going on. You're trudging up old tweets that someone said a decade ago, and think about what you were like a decade ago,
dude. Me and a buddy of mine were talking about it, and
people change, man.
I forget what the specific topic of the week was, but you know, if you started digging up things that I said when I was 16, 17, 18 years old, as they are with some athletes and actors and people now, dude, if you started digging up stuff I did when I was young and dumb, there's no telling what you'd find, man. I'm glad there just wasn't social media then, so none of it was it's out there for the internet to see, man.
Yeah, I mean, you know, are we really moving into an age where just because you say something that you probably regret, it means you lose your job and your career? Is that the age we want to move into? Not to defend what he said. What he said was awful, but it was also a decade ago. He wasn't who he was now or who he is now. And he's long since apologized for what he said. Disney was aware of the tweets before they ever hired him. And if they weren't, they should have never hired him in the first place. And the whole reason this is even an issue is because of Mike Cernovich, who isn't doing this. He didn't bring these tweets to light because of some great concern about James Gunn. It was political assassination.
Sure.
He's doing the same thing with Dan Harmon this week.
Absolutely.
So, you know, people can change. There's room for forgiveness. I don't defend what he said. And had he said it today, had he said it a week ago, had he said it in present time, I'd have understood them firing him.
Sure.
But Mike Cernovich brought up the James Gunn tweets and the Dan Harmon tweets because he's mad about that Roseanne got canceled. And that's just the long and short of it.
Sure.
So I can see Disney reinstating him.
Yeah.
What's really ironic about the whole James Gunn thing is that them firing him has been the worst PR disaster, far worse than his tweets would have ever been.
Yeah, absolutely.
And maybe this will teach Disney and other companies not to just react like this.
You would hope.
Yeah. And you're seeing something similar happen with AMC and Chris Hardwick too. I mean, he got caught up in all this. And listen, I am a total supporter of the Me Too movement. I think we should believe women when they say that these things have happened. At the same time, I want to hear his side of the story too, because here's the thing with the Chris Hardwick thing. It from what people have said, and nobody really knows, especially not us, but she may have embellished a little bit about some of that. Maybe her recollection is a little different than what was actually happening. And again, it's another situation where, people change. People go through difficult times in their lives. People realize, oh, I was like this in the past, and I don't need to be like this anymore. People change.
Yeah, they do. So,
anyway, I didn't mean to go on a rant, but
no, man, it's all good. This is the 6 Months Behind podcast. The website is www.6monthsbehind.com.
And if you want to tell us what you think about James Gunn, you can email us at 6monthsbehind@gmail.com. That's the number 6monthsbehind@gmail.com.
We're recording a What's Next in a few minutes about Steve Ditko. We've kind of, it's kind of later than we intended, but it's going to be there. It'll probably be posted a few days after this show. And we do discuss spoilers on this show. Now, we're saying that now because I'm fixing to discuss another story. And there's possibility. I'm going to try not to, because Sean, I know you don't want to know this. So I'm going to try and avoid spoilers at all possible.
Oh, you can spoil the Infinity thing all you want.
Well, no, you didn't. You said you didn't want to know. So, anywho,
Did I? Maybe I did.
Yeah. So last week we got Infinity Countdown 1. Now we're going to start getting the on the Infinity Wars newsstand itself is hitting the newsstand. And number 1 came out this week, and I've read some reviews of people who did all the books in the Infinity Countdown. Now that this concluded, there's some, and maybe I was too hard on it. I've actually got them set aside to go back and reread the Infinity Countdown books, or maybe I'll reread them as we're reviewing them, one or the other. And Infinity Wars number 1 came out last week. It was really good. It was really good. I knew what was coming in the book because I accidentally read a spoiler about it. And when it reached that point in the book, I was like, oh, wow, that's interesting. Because they're building up to something. I don't even know, man. 6 months now, a year and a half now. They've been building up to something, and then they do away with it, and you're like, oh, well, I wonder what they're going to do now. And then C.B. Cebulski and Jerry Dugan is writing it. They kind of did a media tour after issue 1 came out and said, this is why we did this. And you thought this was going to be your average Infinity War, but it's really not. And here's all the things that are coming in the next 5 issues. It was pretty cool, man. It was pretty cool.
Your average Infinity War. That says a lot about how many Infinity stories they've done over the years.
Yes, it does. I mean, at this point, you've got 3 major series and a movie. Yeah. And who knows how many minor series. So they're saying, this isn't the typical storyline. Okay. There you go.
And, we should be getting the first issue of Infinity Countdown in Unlimited, any day now?
No, we got it last week.
Did we?
Did we?
No, I don't think so.
I thought we did. I don't know.
We'd have made a big hubbub about it.
It's coming soon.
Yeah, it should be on Unlimited soon. There's 6 issues of that?
There's 6 issues. There's a Darkhawk 2 or 3 issue tie-in, and I want to say there's a Champions that has 2 or 3 issues tie-in.
Yeah, and then we get Infinity Wars proper, which if it just hit newsstands in the last week or two, it'll be a solid 6 months before we see that.
Yeah.
So I am not looking forward, or was not looking forward to it, but maybe after I read in Countdown, I'll feel differently. I don't know.
You know, knowing where it's going, and again, it's a serious spoiler, so I don't want to talk about it, but knowing where it's going, it really got my interest up.
Yeah, and I was skeptical of it from the beginning. Well, and I read it on the newsstand. I read Infinity Countdown #1 and was not impressed.
Yeah, I'm with you. I tell you the truth, man. Issue 5 was good, and then this Infinity Wars #1 was really good. So there you go, man.
Just a moment. No respect.
I assume we're editing this out, so
yeah, I guess
because it all came through the microphone.
It shouldn't have. I muted it.
Yeah, but I don't know who called your name or said something, but they came in the room and called your name or said something.
Yeah, because they have no respect for me or what I'm doing.
All right. Well, any more news stories? If not, I'll just pick up and start talking, and you can edit the spot out.
Yeah, we'll do that.
Okay. Give me a second, and I'll give you some silence, and I'll start talking.
Okay.
So anyway, that wraps up Infinity Wars. I'm really looking forward to it. There's not much more in the news this week, and dude, that kind of leaves us with our books.
Yeah.
So first up, we have Avengers number something. Legacy number 676. Yes. This is interesting. First off, I really love this cover. It's somebody who's got Avengers #1 in their hand, an old copy of Avengers #1 in their hand, and they're holding the book, except it's not Avengers #1. It's got Voyager on it.
Mm-hmm.
And this whole thing at the last issue, the heroes were attacked, and Voyager showed up and kind of saved the day. So because she's a founder, and Steve Rogers isn't here, and Iron Man's not there, and obviously Henry Pym's not there, everyone is defaulting to her for her leadership because she's a founding member. And we get several pages of everyone reflecting back to classic moments in Avengers history
that she wasn't present for.
But she is in their recollections. And
but she wasn't really.
Everyone on the team is in awe of her and convinced she was.
Yeah, this is called a retcon. This is where they decide, oh, she was really there the whole time. No one remembers her. And somehow through this whole thing, we're supposed to become endeared to a character that A, wasn't really there to begin with, and B, didn't really earn it.
Not really.
Okay.
I mean, there's a see, that's what I thought they were doing, but they're not. There's a, and it's hard to explain this without, let me finish the recap and then we'll come back to that.
There's a reason she's showing up now.
Yes.
Okay.
So the teams are discussing, and as they're discussing who's going to be in charge, she eventually defers to the Falcon, and the Falcon's going to assume leadership, and then the Black Order and the Lethal Legion show up. Now, the Black Order we're all familiar with. This is Thanos' Goon Squad. If the Lethal Legion and these characters have ever appeared anywhere before, I'm not familiar with it. I think these are all new characters. I didn't take the time to Google it, but I have a pretty expansive knowledge, and I know who they're working for, but I've never seen these characters themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And they show up and just immediately start throwing down with each other. I forget where, Egypt. And they just start throwing down with each other. and then they're told to shut up and sit down by two different voices. So they each obviously have a leader that has told him it's not time to fight yet. And yes, you're on the battlefield. Yes, you're there, but it ain't time. So then we cut back to the Avengers Mansion, and we have all the Avengers sitting around the conference table in the classic Avengers scene. Rogue and Sunspot. I was trying to remember their real names. I couldn't. Rogue and Sunspot get in the argument over who's going to be in charge. Finally, everyone says, look, Falcon's going to be in charge. And about that time, I got it written down over here. No, I don't. Two members of the Black Order show up and destroy Avengers Mansion that Johnny Storm just spent all of his billions of dollars rebuilding.
Mm-hmm. How many times has this mansion been destroyed?
Dude, I don't even know, man.
One day we'll go back and count all the times Avengers Mansion has been destroyed.
We'll just do a what's next on all the storylines where the mansion was destroyed. And what do you call destroy? And the X-Men's mansion's the same way.
Yeah.
We get the X-Men gold number 20 this week, and they're rebuilding it again because it was destroyed a few issues ago.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Anywho, so what you have here, let me show you what you have.
Uh-huh.
You got two teams on the field that obviously aren't in charge. Mm-hmm. Earth has been chosen as a field of battle, and they want to eliminate the Avengers so they don't interfere with their field of battle. Because if you remember from last issue, the Earth has been transported from its normal position to somewhere else in the universe for this whole contest.
Mm-hmm.
So there you go.
Yeah. There's some sort of contest of champions things happening here.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, there is. Really like the art in this book. I'm not even sure who did it. I do and they've obviously got someone else doing the art during the retcon. But
it's supposed to look like old style. So
P.P. Lorez did the art. Really good art, good cover. I enjoyed this the first time I read it, and I'm enjoying it now, man. It's a good story.
Okay. I'm not quite convinced, but the story's fine. I don't like Voyager. It's really a pet peeve of mine when a brand new character is stuck in the story and they go, oh yeah, remember her? She was there the whole time, like they did with the Sentry back in the day.
When we get off the air, I'll tell you what she's about.
I'm holding out.
Okay. I think it's 6 or 7 issues from now before they really reveal what's going on with her.
No, I mean, I understand there's a whole point to that, all that happening. It's just, it's a thing that irritates me.
Because, dude, this is like I want to say this is a 14 or 16 issue story arc.
Mm-hmm.
And they're publishing Avengers every week. So you're going to get one every week. But dude, this thing goes on for a while.
Yeah. Yeah. Then we have Champions number 16. So 2 stories going on here. You have the A story, which is what is basically the Vision's light. This is basically another Visions book. You've got Human Vision, or Human Viv, the original Viv, who was turned human by the High Evolutionary. And then in his grief, Vision built a second Vivian who is a synthezoid. And he thought that Viv was dead, so he rebuilt her, but she wasn't dead. She just showed up in her human form, and now there's 2 of them. So it's awkward, to say the least, especially when your whole family's robots and you're not anymore. But Vision seems to think that it's great. They're sisters. They're twins. They can be sisters now. They're a family again. Hooray.
Everybody's going to live happily ever after. Yes.
Yeah, but that's not really where either of them are at. And the whole thing is Human Viv is like trying to adjust to her human form and doesn't know what to think of either of her family members anymore. Whereas the synthezoid Viv sees Human Viv as inferior and weak, and Vision's just completely oblivious to it all. He's just like, let's go out for a family outing and do stuff, and hooray, isn't this nice, kids? It's like when mommy and daddy divorce and they're trying to make kids not feel bad.
Yes.
Yeah. The other story happening here is the Champions team is trying to figure out, do they invite new Viv onto the team? If not, do they keep the old Viv? If they don't do that, then they need a new recruit. Spider-Man says that he needs to, they should recruit his girlfriend, but she's too busy. He's referring to Spider-Gwen, and I didn't realize that was his girlfriend, but whatever.
That's actually a pretty funny scene.
It is a really funny scene.
They all think it's the fake girlfriend thing.
Yeah, they all think she's not real. Because it's like, oh yeah, where does she live? And he's like, Earth 65. And like, Earth 65? What? Yeah, they're like, I thought you were going to say Canada, but Earth 65 is even better. So they travel to New York and attempt to recruit Lunella, Moon Girl, and Devil Dinosaur, who last we saw in Moon Girl, Devil Dinosaur was no longer a part of the picture, but okay. She's in every other book. So.
Yeah, she's everywhere. The dinosaur, as I should say.
Yeah, the dinosaur's always with her, except in the main book, and that's one of those continuity errors that bothers me. They decide to leave Lunella alone and go pick up Patriot and Falcon, but not Falcon, the younger Falcon, and help them out down at the border and see if maybe they would like to join the team, or if maybe Riri Williams would like to join the team, who I thought was on the team to begin with, but apparently not. So
she was back during Secret Empire. Apparently she was just a temp.
I guess so. Yeah. So that's what's going on in Champions.
There's a page where Riri and Amadeus Cho sit around and speak to each other in equations. Yes. Pretty entertaining.
It was a funny little scene. I've liked Champions so far. I mean, we're 16 issues in. We're good ways in now, and it's a good little book, man.
Yeah, it's good. I think it's the one book from the Avengers series that didn't get canceled because they canceled US Avengers, they canceled Uncanny Avengers, they canceled all the other Avenger books, the one that Hawkeye was in, whatever it was, and consolidated them all into the main Avengers title. 676, which we just talked about, and now we're going to get weekly. Yeah. So you're still going to get an Avengers book every week. You're still going to get 4 Avengers books every month. It's just all the teams in the same book.
Right.
Next, we have X-Men Gold, number 20, bringing us to our X-Men books. This has been a really good series. First 19 issues have been great. This book, this issue, I was kind of like, okay, whatever. The ship crash landed last issue. Storm can't control the weather on this planet that they crash landed on. Ink and Kurt are tangled up in the ship. Once again, Kurt should be dead, but he's not, because somewhere along the way he became immortal when he got kicked out of heaven. And I don't remember that happening, but apparently it's a thing now.
Both of us quit reading X-Men for a while. I don't remember that happening either, but it did.
Apparently, I don't. I mean, he had his own solo book for 6 or 8 issues, and when he was a pirate and stuff, and that's when they resurrected him. Honestly, I don't remember it, man, but apparently it was. Kitty is Peter's in really bad shape. She's begging him not to die. Oro has to remember how to fight without her powers, which of course she's very capable of. Fiddle Faddle. Nightcrawler and Ink find this machine. They can get them home, but they need somebody to power it. The problem is when Oro shows up and everybody gets back on the spaceship, her powers aren't working. And of course, Logan berates her into, activating her powers anyway. And then they go through what is a dimensional portal machine that was on the ship. As we discussed earlier, they go back to the mansion, which is being rebuilt. And at the end, Kitty asks Peter to marry her. Isn't it sweet?
Yeah.
It's a nice little page, actually. It's all
right.
Yeah, it's a good page. So everybody got home, lived happily ever after. I love the art in this book. The art was good. The storytelling's good. I was just like, you could have took them home last issue and done away with all this.
Yeah, like you could have found another context for this to happen in, but I guess without the whole like we're all gonna die scenario, it wasn't it wasn't gonna happen. I don't know.
I don't know,
I
man.
I get it. I get it. But you know,
Yeah,
now they're on to another storyline. So
but I will say this: it's for years the X Men have been just kind of stuck, and it's good to see them doing X-Men things again, getting back in
mhm.
space, Marvel creating new villains, which they did with this storyline, returning him to the core X-Men concepts, which they did. So, I'm happy with that.
Yeah, I'm good with where this book is going.
Sure.
Blue not so much, but this book and pretty much all the other X-Men books are all right.
Right.
Including all new Wolverine number 29. So the three X kids, X-23, Gabby, and Dakin, sought out Muramasa on his mountain and said, "Hey, we need some help." So he takes a part of their soul and imbues it into some armor that he made. And they're recovering because he took a piece of their soul, so that requires some recovery time. When the children or the orphans of X show up and start just murdering people looking for them, they also use the hand.
The right hand?
No, they're the hand.
That was a joke. Sorry. It's a
Oh,
bad one,
okay.
apparently.
It was, yeah. So they're fighting the hand. The orphans are, attempting to kill them. X-23 puts some really cool armor on that protects them from those Muramasa bullets. They're able to defeat them, and they're going to go rescue their other buddies from the orphans of X.
You know, here's the thing that I didn't like about this book, and maybe you perceived it differently.
Mhm.
Is the hands under the control of Gorgon. And apparently Gorgon owes Miramasa, did I pronounce that correctly?
Yeah.
Some kind of debt, and he's in debt to Miramasa, and his subordinates attacked Miramasa without Gorgon's permission.
Mhm.
So Gorgon shows up and very humbly and meekly apologizes and said, "Look, anything you need, I'll do." So he agrees to transport the X-Men wherever, or the X characters here, the Wolverines, wherever they need to go. I feel like that's kind of out of character for Gorgon.
It is, but it's supposed to demonstrate his respect and relationship with Muramasa.
That's true. That's it shows you what a figure Miramasa is in the book, but maybe it takes away from Gorgon a little bit. But I don't know, man.
I
I
don't.
don't.
I didn't feel that way because we're seeing him in
Wolverine.
Old Man Logan.
Oh man, Logan. Yes.
Yeah. Doing exactly this, commanding the hand. But no, I feel like he's out of character because he and Muramasa have such a relationship. I mean, Muramasa calls him by his childhood name. Muramasa remembers him when he was a child.
Right. But can I say, by the way, I don't remember when Marvel Legacy came out. I don't even know how many months ago. I mean, it showed up in Unlimited months ago. They still don't have Wolverine, the young Logan, back in the book yet. They're still selling Hunt for Wolverine books.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just like, seriously? How long are we going
They're going to
to
draw this out for 2 or 3 years.
Apparently, man. I mean, they did the Jean Grey thing. It's basically coming out in 5 weeks. Now, you had it leading up in, the Young Jean Grey series. You had it leading up, okay? But it's 4 or 5 issues coming out over 6 weeks, and then immediately launches into X-Men Red, which is her forming an X-Men team and them going and doing their thing. They wrap it up in like 6-8 weeks tops. I don't understand why you've got to draw this Wolverine thing out forever, man.
Because it's a big deal and everyone's going to buy all the books because they want to know how Wolverine came back.
I guess, man.
That is their hope. I don't think that's going to happen. I think people are going to go, really? I have to buy 4 different miniseries just to figure out how Wolverine came back into the universe?
Yeah.
When he's been back for forever? No, I think I'll just wait till you start publishing Wolverine books again.
Yeah, I haven't looked at the cells lately, but I don't think any of them are setting the cells world on fire.
No, I don't think so either, and I don't think they're going to.
So, anywho, that brings us to Weapon X number 13. Hasn't been one of my favorite series. The whole book hasn't. And this issue lived up to that standard. It's just mediocre, I thought. How good did you think it was?
It's okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's not bad. You're right. It's okay.
They spent too long bogged down with that Wolverine Hulk story. And they've kind of been waffling since. I like the team. I like the characters in it. It's not bad. It's just it's okay.
Yeah,
I like Nuke, who's the big villain here. So
yeah, let's discuss it. We begin with they've got a man down, and they're discussing the fact of what they want to do next. And one of the young men there in the country has a very good point, which is you guys come, you kill a couple of bad guys, and then you leave, and 10 minutes later, the villains come back out of the woodwork and take everything over again. So why don't you really do something this time? And Warpath, isn't that his name? Warpath?
Yeah.
It's James Proudstar. I can think James Proudstar, but I can't get Warpath right. There you go. He wants to overthrow the government, kill everybody. They're arguing about it. Finally, they reach a compromise, and Domino says, hey, we'll rob a bank, take away their funds, we get the cash, everybody lives happily ever after. Which, I thought was, okay, that's an interesting compromise. So then we have Sabretooth fighting all these guys who are taking the nuke pills that give them the power of nuke. And he thought it was a good idea to release Frank Simpson, aka the real Nuke. I'm gonna call him Frank Simpson from now on, just to keep the confusion down. So he and Sabretooth are fighting all of the nukes, and dude, he's a psychopath with a Omega level powers, and it's just all bad. Okay, that's and at some point Wolverine's like, dude, what were you thinking? And he was like, well, I needed help, and one psychopath to another, I thought it'd be good to turn him loose. There you go. So then the X-Men have launched this plan where half the team, Domino and Warpath and a few others, are going to attack the bank and distract everyone, while Wolverine and someone else goes and destroys the weapons. Excuse me, the vat where the pills are being made and stored and all that sort of thing. Of course, the original Nuke, whose name I just forgot.
Frank Simpson.
Frank Simpson, thank you. Of course, he doesn't want the pills destroyed. So he starts leading all the other nukes, and then they're attacking Weapon X. And Sabretooth's got this bright idea at the end that they'll all take the nuke pills, and God only knows how that's going to end next issue.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm sure that will go swimmingly.
It's not bad. It's just whatever.
Yeah, it's not bad, but it's not great either. We've been reading for 13 issues now, and it's okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I like the art. I like the color. There's a color style that's in a lot of these books that I'm really enjoying.
Yeah. I tell you what, it was better. It was way better than Gen X has any right to be. But Gen X number 86 was actually just a half a hair better than it usually is, which is to say, not an abomination. So Quentin Quire is hanging out in a shack on a beach on the sentient island of Krakoa. And he's just like isolated himself there. So Jubilee shows up in the Blackbird, just Jubilee, to get him to come back to the X-Mansion. And she's like, we're your family. You need to come home. And he's like, I saved the Shi'ar from the Phoenix, and they made me a god. I impressed the Phoenix Force, and now I have a shard of it inside me. So there's no reason to consider you weaklings my family. And she's like, when did all that happen? And apparently it happened in Mighty Thor number 19 about 8 issues ago. You probably don't remember, but it was when Thor was fighting the Shi'ar gods.
Yeah, I remember it. Yeah, okay. I do.
So he's all pissy and doesn't like being.
He's the only reason this book is even halfway readable.
Yeah, he's all pissy and doesn't want to come back to the X-Mansion. Meanwhile, Jubilee gets a message that something's wrong at the X-Mansion, that's disappeared or under siege or something. So he seems concerned about that. Quentin does. Meanwhile, yeah, Monet is trying to kill everybody in the X-Mansion, and the only ones there to stop her are the weird Gen X kids. There's lots of fighting, lots of them doing X-Men stuff. But at the end, Jubilee shows up with Quentin, who decided to come back, I guess. And somehow Jubilee gets her powers back and is no longer a vampire. That's the big reveal here. It's not explained exactly how that happens, but Monet knocks her out of a window, and when she comes to on the ground, she's suddenly no longer a vampire and has her original powers back. So, okay.
Yeah. I'm glad this isn't, we're not broadcasting this on YouTube, because you probably see me stretching my head continually.
We are broadcasting this on YouTube.
No, well, the video, you know what I'm saying? We're not video casting. How about that?
Yes, we are.
Okay, fine. You're getting to watch me stretch my head continually, which is probably very distracting to your listeners. Aren't.
Okay. Anyway, sorry. Gen X sucks, and I really hope it gets canceled soon. I think it does.
I think it does too.
I think the whole point of this was to give Jubilee her powers back and fix Jubilee as much as she can be fixed. And that seems to be coming to an end.
Yeah. So, yeah, there you go. Yeah. Gen X and my head and shoulder both suck. We can agree on those three things. Peter Parker's Spectacular Spider-Man number 299. This book has actually gotten better. I was a little disappointed at it in the beginning, but Chip Zdarsky is doing a good job writing it. Chip Zdarsky?
Zdarsky?
Zdarsky.
Zdarsky.
Dude, I can barely pronounce Martin. Pronouncing Zdarsky is, come on.
Yeah.
Anywho, so it opens with Teresa Durner, Black Panther, and Spider-Man all standing there talking, and the Black Panther wants to take her to the Wakandan embassy and then the Wakanda because everybody's after her because she knows how to destroy all the heroes. And then Hawkeye shows up and gets into battle, and next thing you know, it's Spider-Man versus some of the Avengers. Before long, it's all the Avengers. They fly away, and the Black Panther and Clint Barton, Hawkeye, go after him. Apparently, all you got to do to disable the Quinjet is just spray webbing all over the windshield, and it's completely dysfunctional.
Right? Yeah, like, dude, it's one of the most advanced aircraft in the world, and it doesn't have windshield wipers.
Come on, man. I don't even know. Then we have Electro leading J. Jonah Jameson and Betty Brant into the Tinker's lab. And then we find the Tinker's brother back at his lab that was blown up, working on things when Spider-Man and Teresa show up. And it's pretty funny. The line there's, I don't have time for your insipid jokes. And Spider-Man's like, hold on, there's always time for my jokes. And he's kind of irritated because, he who made Spider-Man judge, jury, and executioner of who gets to be heroes and who gets to do things and when they don't, which is kind of a good point. At that point, the villains have all of Teresa's information, and they're in the process of attacking all the heroes and bringing them down. The Tinker shows up in this Spider Slayer that's kind of an over-the-top Spider Slayer. It's like a cross between a Spider Slayer and a Scorpion, and it's taking out the Avengers, who are now all there in force. Of course, Spider-Man tries to take it out and doesn't succeed, and then we find, I forget Duder's name. What's the Tinker's brother's name? Anyway,
I don't know, but it's, as we see in the next page, it's not important.
no, it's not important because the Tinker is really an android that Tinker's inside, and he's been playing everybody for 13 or 14 issues now. And it's really, I enjoyed this, man. I did.
Yeah, and apparently number 300 is supposed to be really good. Yeah, it's a good little Spider-Man book.
Yeah, I really did enjoy it. It was entertaining.
Next, we have Venom Inc. Omega, which is the wrap-up issue to this Venom Amazing Spider-Man crossover story. 85% of this comic book, all 31 pages of it, is the big showdown between Lee Price, Spider-Man, Venom, Anti-Venom, and Black Cat. It's just a huge fight, dude. It's a big old brawl. And of course, at the end, Lee Price gets taken down, his symbiote's destroyed or incapacitated in some manner, and everybody goes their own separate ways. There is a weird little bit of dialogue here at the end about how this means that Black Cat loses her entire criminal empire. And that doesn't make any sense to me, because why would you spend literally like 2 years, basically since the end of Secret Wars, since they relaunched the universe?
Secret Wars, yes.
They've been slowly dropping hints that Black Cat is building up. She's basically become the Kingpin of New York, while the Kingpin's being mayor. And it's just all gone in a couple of panels? Really?
Yeah, dude.
Somehow I feel like this is going to be another one of those things where this happens in this comic, and then the rest of the comics ignore that, and she's still queen, the crime queen of New York City.
You can really make a case that whether we're talking about what Black Cat is doing in this book versus some of the other Spider-Man books, whether it's the dragon in Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur, I'm sorry, not dragon, that Marvel's editors really don't have a good grip on what's going on in the universe as a whole. And we discussed that the last few weeks, and it just keeps seeming to be getting worse.
The funny thing is, the Black Cat building a criminal empire thing was one of the things that they were consistently getting right.
Yeah.
I mean, we'll see what happens. Maybe that doesn't happen, but I think that's a whole lot of buildup just to knock it down in a couple panels.
I do too. So next, we move on to we don't have any Inhumans books this week, so we move on to the 616 universe, where America number 11 is there. In the previous two Ultimates series and in Secret Wars is where I was really introduced to her when she joined that team that She-Hulk had, which I forgot the name of. Then it had its own book for a while. Then she joined the Ultimates for those two series. I really enjoyed America Chavez. And then you get to the solo book, and I'm just like, man, no.
It's not for us.
It's not for us. I'm not sure it's for anybody, because she's back on her college campus.
It seems to be a big hit with some people. It won an Eisner Award just a couple weeks ago.
Did it really?
Yeah. It is a writing style that I don't understand or relate to in any way, and I don't think I'm supposed to.
I guess, man.
Much in the same way that HBO show Girls doesn't appeal to me because I don't relate to any of the characters, because I'm not a woman in her early 20s. I don't relate to this comic book or this character.
There you go, man. I mean, she goes to the astral plane and meets up with her grandmother, and then she goes through some kind of Terrigen Mist waterfall thing, and her powers are amped up temporarily. Then her grandmother gets captured by these monsters and dragged into a cloud. I don't know, man. It's
weird.
It's weird, and it's the only thing going on for this book are the covers. Yeah, it's
It's been weird since issue number 1, and I think that's why it's not selling. Not that it's not any good. I think it's just too out there for a regular audience. Because I was excited about this when it started.
I was too.
And I was like, oh, America Chavez gets her own book. I like America Chavez. She's cool. But this is spacey and weird and way out there.
Yeah, it's just not. Let's just say it's not for me.
And it's also dealing with themes that I just can't relate to. And that's fine. I don't mind that. But it's really, it's like it's out there. It's some Grant Morrison, Batman RIP out there.
Yeah, it's way out there.
Yeah. Doctor Strange 384. First of all, that's a Mike Del Mundo cover. I haven't even looked at the credits, but just by looking at that art, that's a Mike Del Mundo cover. Am I right? I am right. I knew it. Yeah, that cover is really cool.
That's a cool. That is a very cool cover.
Yeah, that pops on the newsstand, dude. If I had seen that, if I'd walked into a comic book shop and seen that and said it and saw Doctor Strange on the cover, I'd have bought it right there.
Yeah.
So having absorbed the magical powers of Yggdrasil, Stephen goes to his old house where Loki is currently Sorcerer Supreme, picks up a rock, throws it through a window. Loki comes outside and he's like, is Zelma home? And Loki's like, no, and you really need to let all this go. And Stephen's like, good. And he literally brings the whole house crashing down on Loki's head. They get into a big old wizard fight when Zelma shows up, and she's like, look, y'all knock it off. What?
I was going to say, this is the one book that I really wanted to read this week that I haven't gotten to yet.
Yeah. So she casts a spell on them that neutralizes their magic powers for a minute. And she's like, you two are going to talk about this like equals. And Stephen's like, we're not equals. He's still an Asgardian god, as Loki punches him into the wall. So Loki takes him to that door that Loki wanted open a couple issues ago. And he's like, look, just open it and I won't kill you while we can't use our powers. And he says, okay, if that's what you really wanted. And then there's a little dialogue, a monologue from Stephen about how whenever you perform magic, there's a cost. And one day he'll have to absorb that cost. But until then, he can just squirrel it all away in a basement. Well, it turns out he's been keeping the Void. You remember the Sentry? There's Bob and the Void. Right. He's been keeping the Void locked up to keep it out of Bob Reynolds' head, and it shoots out of the room and consumes him. And now he's Stephen Strange, the Void. So yeah,
I really want to read that.
It's really good. Donny Cates is killing it.
What I've actually been reading is a lot of Steve Ditko's Doctor Strange stuff. So I was reading a bunch of that and some other things and just didn't make it to this book, but I'm looking forward to it. Next we have Deadpool versus Old Man Logan #4. Maddie's power is to teleport things. And as we're going to see, as this issue goes on, she's essentially an Omega level mutant. So what she did last issue was she teleported Logan and Deadpool together and combined them into basically one person, kind of leaving Logan on like this astral plane thing and giving Deadpool all of his powers, including his claws. Deadpool was enjoying using the claws when Maddie decides to put him back. At that point, Deadpool starts trying to escape with the girl, and there's a lot of dialogue about them trying to get out. Then Wolverine goes crazy and kills everyone. This is not for kids. This is Punisher level killing stuff that he does. And he's about to kill one of the guys there, one of the Gen Form guys, and the guy whispers something in his ear. And it says, look, you got to understand, this is why this kid's here. And you don't know what he whispers, but he whispers something. Of course, Logan kills him anyway. Then he catches up to Deadpool and the girl, and he and Deadpool begin arguing because Logan's like, the kid's staying here. And Deadpool's like, why? I'm not going to explain this, but I read her file. I know how dangerous she is, and she ain't leaving. And they get thrown down. Deadpool pulls his gun, and instead of he just cuts his whole, everything like below the elbow off to get rid of the gun, which pretty well takes care of the gun problem because it'll take Deadpool a few minutes to regrow his hand, which, gives Wolverine the time to defeat him. And then at the end, Maddie tells him to stop fighting. And because she couldn't get them out of the room, she teleported the entire facility out of the way, which shows you how powerful she really is. It's a good book, man. I enjoyed it. It's not great. It's an Old Man Logan Deadpool money grab, but it's good. It's entertaining, and it's exceeded expectations. Let's put it that way.
That's good. It's certainly better than Deadpool and Spider-Man.
Oh, dude, no doubt, man. It's much better than Deadpool and Spider-Man, which is another money grab.
Yeah. Monsters Unleashed number 10. A giant squid creature from the sea attacks. That's it.
Yeah. I said Doctor Strange was the only book that I wanted to read that I didn't get to. I didn't read this book. I didn't want to read this book. Okay.
It's an all ages book. It's not meant for us. It's meant for kids. And it would be, if I could see a 7-year-old loving this stuff.
Sure.
But, and a little more than that happens in the book, but it's essentially a giant squid monster from the sea attacks, and was summoned by these members of a cult, and they have to kill it. And that's just what it is.
There you go. Next continues the Jason Aaron opus of Thor in Mighty Thor number 703. How long is he going to keep writing this?
He's still writing it. We're 800 issues in or something, and he's still writing it.
Okay. I mean, because what I should have said is, does he have an end to this storyline? And apparently, I don't know, man.
He does, but I've heard him describe it as he's writing an epic. Whenever he is done, he'll be able to pick up the first issue he ever, 2011, 2012, and read his whole run of Thor, and it will tell you one story from beginning to end.
Right. Yeah, and don't get me wrong, I'm not knocking it. Russell Dorman is doing the art in this. Jason Aaron's writing it. I'm really into it. It hit a lull about a year ago where it kind of drugged some.
It had so many plot lines going on, I couldn't keep up with it, was the issue.
Yeah, but it's not that way now, and it's really good, man. It's really entertaining. So this issue opens with Jane Foster and the SHIELD agent, whose name I can't remember, riding around in their car, and they're discussing Jane Foster's cancer. And then we cut to the present, which is Jane Foster in her room, and the SHIELD agent and Odin's son, Doctor Strange, and the Falcon. These are the 4 people who know that Jane Foster is Thor, having an intervention, because in explaining an issue, because it was something that I really hadn't understood until now. I say, and Stephen Strange explains it. Essentially, every time she changes into Thor, not only does it undo the chemotherapy that she's going through for the cancer, but it affects her chemistry, her body chemistry, to the point to where it's causing the cancer to progress more rapidly than it would normally. Right. So not only is she undoing the healing process of the chemotherapy, she is causing the cancer to proceed and advance expeditiously. So there you go. And there's several pages of them telling her that she can't pick up the hammer again. If she does this, possibly even one more time, it's just her body, her human form simply cannot handle the transformation. And we saw a couple of issues ago where she became Lady Thor, and it was, maybe I'm not going to be able to transform back this time. I mean, that's how far along this thing is.
Yeah, I mean, she knows what she's doing every time she does it.
Right.
So she stayed Thor for months on end.
Yeah. Then you have, while all this is happening, Mangog is just tearing his way through Asgard. He's just wrecking Asgard, man.
Yeah, he puts Heimdall's eyes out.
Yeah. Finally, Frida decides to put on the armor of the Destroyer and activate the Destroyer, and he trashes the Destroyer too. I mean, he is destroying Asgard, and for some reason, a reason I don't understand, Odin is just sitting on his throne while all this happens.
Because he's Odin and he does stuff like this.
Dude, his wife picked up the mantle and went out and fought because he wouldn't. I don't understand. I mean,
yeah, it's an Odin thing.
Yeah, I guess, man. Finally, he's wishing he could talk to his son one last time and explain to him how he really feels. About that time, the coincidence happens and Odin's son shows up and they go to face Mangog together.
Yep. And meanwhile, the Hammer's there tempting Jane Foster to come back.
Yeah, because we have to remember, a few issues ago that we learned that the Hammer is sentient and has its own thoughts and personalities.
Well, we've always kind of known that.
Not to the extent that Jason Aaron has carried it through now.
Well, that's true. Yeah, she almost picks the hammer up, even though they're standing there telling her, if you do this, you'll die. Just because she knows that she's the only one that can beat Mangog. And we'll see where this goes, but I'm pretty sure I know where it goes.
Yeah, I do too.
It's good.
It's very good. It's very good.
It's one of the better books this week. Here it's Avengers #4. Dude, you're missing out on this book too. It's really good.
Is it?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I'll go back and read it. How many? We're 4 issues in?
Yeah, and next, either the 5th issue or the 6th is the last one. This is a mini series.
At this point, then I'll probably just wait and read the mini series.
Yeah. So the whole thing is, every 1,000 years, a representative of Hell get together, and there's like a summit. They discuss business. It's usually the Archangel Michael and some demon representative. Well, this has gone on for millennia, and Hell has orchestrated this plan to disrupt the Covenant, kill Michael the Archangel, and take over Earth. And the way they intend to do that is they've taken the 30 pieces of silver that Judas got for betraying Jesus. Apparently when he did that and killed himself, his soul inhabited those pieces of silver and they became magic. And the way it's explained in this comic is that the vengeance of Judas is imbued into these coins and can kill an angel. So Necrodamus, who's the main bad guy here, has gone to great lengths to gather all 30 pieces of the silver and reforge them into bullets with which he can shoot an angel. So the team here, Satana, Damian Hellstrom, Ghost Rider, and Blade, I couldn't think of his name, are tasked with keeping this all from happening. So they're in this bar where this guy's like, look, I can tell you where all the pieces have been assembled and they're being reforged. I can tell you where to find them. Just leave me out of it when it all hits the fan. They go to this guy who lives in a volcano who can reforge magic metal like this. They get into a fight with him. He gives them the information about when the what they call the Covenant, the summit, is happening. Apparently it's happening tomorrow. they don't know what their next move is. So Satana and Hellstrom go to talk to their dad, who is Lucifer. And they find out the real plan here. Lucifer plans to have a mortal interrupt the summit, kill Michael the Archangel. And what happens is there's fail safes in place where the portal from heaven will close forever and hell will be free to take over the earth. And then he's like, with this army, and there's a huge army of demons that he's got prepared to destroy the world with. And the summit begins at the end of this issue. So,
well, there you go. Yeah.
If you're into stuff like that, I think you'd enjoy it.
I'm not. And I'm not saying it's bad. I just that's getting into all that demonic stuff and the all the characters you just mentioned. It's just really not my thing.
Okay, then you may not care for this.
No,
I'm eating it up.
I've always enjoyed Damien Hellstrom as a character, particularly when he was in the Defenders. Which I'm dating myself again. I mean, we're talking the late 70s and 80s.
I was going to say he hadn't been the Defenders in a long while.
Yes, I said I was dating myself. I enjoyed him there. He's some of these other creatures or characters. I apologize. Yeah, not so much. I like Mephisto.
I don't think he showed up at any point.
Yeah, I mean, you didn't mention. I'm just saying, from that group of characters.
Yeah, the
Mephisto's the one I enjoy.
Yeah, the demons.
Yeah,
the greater and lesser demons.
Yeah.
Star Wars number 42. So they're still on Jeddah. There's this big, like we saw in the last couple issues, there's this big mining ship that's gone to Jeddah to mine the rest of the Kyber out of the planet. The trio put together a plan to take it over and destroy it, and are in the middle of that plan when things go awry. There's a big fight and Princess Leia maybe gets captured, and yeah, it was all right. It was advancing the plot in a direction it needed to go. So it wasn't the most exciting issue. It was a lot of dialogue and we need to get here before we can do the next thing kind of book.
Sure. And sometimes you need those issues.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah.
Even if they're not the most exciting, they serve a purpose.
Yes. And I bang on those issues a lot because a lot of times you could do without them, but sometimes you do need them to create an overall storyline and narrative.
Yeah, and that's what this was.
Sure.
Yep. So what was your favorite book this week?
There's some contenders this week. That Avengers book I thought was good. I thought the Peter Parker book was good. Dude, I think it's Mighty Thor number 703. I really enjoyed it. I enjoy everything that Jason Aaron's doing with it. Yeah, I enjoyed it, man.
Okay. I'm gonna have to go with Spirits of Vengeance number 4.
Cool.
I'm really enjoying this series. And granted, it's right up my alley. I enjoy this kind of like the war of heaven and hell kind of theme going on here. That's a thing I enjoy. I read a lot of Frank Peretti as a teenager. So,
Yeah. Cool. In the dump this week, we have more Masters of Kung Fu. How much more can there be, man?
I don't know, but there's still more.
Some Khazar, a Green Goblin.
Miniseries from 95.
Some Captain America Golden Age stuff, which is entertaining. It's I'm glad to see them filling in all these old books.
Me too.
And so, yeah, even if there is like 300 issues of Masters of Kung Fu, I'm glad to see it there. Maybe one day I'll actually read it.
It's got a huge fan base, as we found out a year or two ago. So good for them, I guess.
Sure. And I'm sure they're excited about it.
I like seeing this old Captain America stuff because it's literally World War II era Captain America. I mean, this stuff was published in 1941.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And then Marvel Age Annual number 4. No idea what that's about.
I don't know, man. Marvel Age, these days they do, what do they call this thing? They do the previews. They do Marvel previews. And, they give it away free at the comic book store. And Marvel Age was kind of the predecessor to that. So why you would take a Marvel Age Annual and put it online, I don't know, man.
I don't either. Anyway, that pretty well wraps us up this week. If you want to get in touch with us, you can email us at 6monthsbehind@gmail.com. That's the number 6monthsbehind@gmail.com.
The website is www.6monthsbehind.com.
And as always, Pat, do you have some wisdom to leave us with before we go?
Sometimes I just can't help the feeling that when you're tired and you want to go to sleep and then you go to bed and your body says, dude, I was just kidding.
Dude, that happened to me twice this week.
We won't even get into how often it happens to me.
All right. See y'all next week.
Peace.
Okay. What was that thing you sent me for Ditko?
I'll explain it. You don't have to read it.
Okay.
Don't worry about it. I'm going to cover it.
Okay. All right. You ready? You need a minute?
You know what? Let me run take a whiz real quick. I can almost keep going. I could probably cross my legs for 15 minutes, but let me just
go.
Yeah, let me just go. I'll be right back. Man, to tell you she got a new car, or she's still mad not speaking to you?
Why would she be mad and not speaking to me?
Oh, because she's grumpy, man.
Okay.
She doesn't feel good, and she's grumpy. And
I didn't know if I said something because I don't.
Oh, you did. It was.
Did I?
She mentioned her arm was hurting Friday night, and you said it could have been a whole lot worse. And she knows it could have been a whole lot worse, and you just kind of hit a sore subject with her.
Oh, well,
she's grumpy, man. She's grumpy.
Okay, I didn't mean it like that, but okay.
I understand. It's her being grumpy. She bought a brand new 2018 Corolla yesterday.
That'll be nice.
Yeah, it's a nice car, man.
Dude, when she says stuff like that, I don't know what to say. My arm hurts.
Tell her you feel sorry for her. You understand. You have sympathy for her.
Yeah.
Give her some form of sympathy.
Okay. I'm not good at that.
I understand. But yeah, we went up there, and it's the end of the model year. So
I was going to say, you can get a good one right now.
Yeah, we managed to get a new one cheaper because normally I buy something with low mileage on it, but there's so many deals going on with because it's the end of the model year that she got a new one cheaper than she would have got a one that was a year old with 20,000 miles on it.
That's cool. I'm sure insurance paid for it.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm sure they cut that check real quick.
They haven't yet, actually, but they're going to.
Okay.
Yeah, dude, they gave her this little friggin' Nissan, and she was complaining about how small it was. And I drove it home yesterday. Literally, the seat is so narrow, my butt doesn't sit in it.
The Nissan Versa?
I guess that's what it is, man. I mean,
it's a hatchback.
No, it's not a hatchback. It's a 4-door, but dude, that thing's tiny.
Yeah, I mean, it's the Versa.
I'm fat, but my butt's not that big, and it literally hangs out over both sides of the seat.
Oh, dude. I drove one of those Versas to Atlanta and back one time. It sucked.
Yeah.
So that's why I bought an Altima.
Yeah, there you go, man.
All right, you ready?
Whenever you are.
All right. 3, 2, 1.
Hello again. This is the What's Next podcast. I am Pat.
And I am Sean.
And we're the guys that bring you the 6 Month Behind podcast. This is our parallel podcast that discusses other things that you're able to read in the Marvel universe and Marvel Unlimited, of course. And with the passing of Steve Ditko a few weeks ago, we decided to just kind of look into the work that he did for Marvel, because he did a lot of work for other publishers, but he's most noted for his work on Spider-Man and Doctor Strange. And, we thought we'd look into it. How you doing, man?
I'm all right. How are you?
I am well, all things considered. So before we get into Steve Ditko, let's discuss the Marvel method. And that's what it's called. If you Google the Marvel method or look at it Wikipedia, it's going to redirect you to another Marvel or to another Wikipedia page. And it discusses how comic books are written. And in that Wikipedia page, Peter David describes how he writes a comic book. Now, what Peter David does is he writes all the dialogue, scripts it out, literally writes the word balloon. So the guy writing it knows what to write in the word balloon, then describes what should be on each panel in each page. Okay. If you've looked at that Vision book, what do they call that thing? The executive cut or something?
It was the director's cut.
The director's cut.
Yeah, in the back of each issue is all the scripting and the methodology of how a comic book gets put together, which is a really great insight into how the process works.
And that's how the process works. That's not how Stan Lee worked. What Stan Lee would do and we're talking as long as he was writing, all the way from 61 through whenever he stopped writing in 72, I want to say, what he would do is he would write half a page to a page of notes saying, this is what's happening in the issue. And at that point, mainly Jack Kirby and Steve Ditko would then draw the book simply from those few pages of notes. Now, at that point, the stories differ because Stan Lee insisted he would go back and write all the dialogue. Jack Kirby says, no, I even wrote the dialogue and put it in those things. And I think the truth is probably somewhere in the middle. Okay. But the thing is, they weren't getting creative direction from Stan Lee. Okay. So you say, hey, I want Spider-Man to fight this dude with electrical powers this issue. And, the electrical guy's going to do this. And maybe Aunt May will be taken captive. And that's what's going to happen.
Right. What you see displayed on the panels is their interpretation of that.
Right. So then Ditko and Kirby, and that's how they came up with the Silver Surfer. Stan Lee never had the idea for the Silver Surfer. He was Jack Kirby thought that there needed to be more to that Fantastic Four 48 through 50 story arc, and he created the Silver Surfer. And so they would get those short handwritten notes, and then Ditko would have to go and flesh out this whole thing in the comic book, which is just as I was telling you what happened with Peter David, how Peter David did it, and how most of the writers do this. Dude, that's totally different. And that's why, when the Kirby family sued Marvel for ownership of a lot of the characters that Marvel has now, it took them a long time, but Marvel eventually settled, and the crux of them settling was the Marvel method. That's how Stan Lee did it, and that's what Jack Kirby wound up doing. The other interesting thing about Ditko is that dude was a recluse, man. He he lived with a dude that drew fetish comics. Okay. This dude was doing fetish comics in the early 60s. And to get by all the laws, all the pornography laws, he did them by mail order. Okay. And essentially he had his own publishing company where he was, he was just mail ordering. He was sending it through the mail. Okay. Which is probably still illegal, but he didn't get caught. So it's all good. In 1964, Steve Ditko did an interview for a magazine, And it was literally, they mailed him questions, he mailed responses, they mailed him follow-up questions, he mailed responses. Okay. And we're not talking email, we're talking snail mail. Okay. This probably took weeks to draw this to drag this process out. That's how reclusive Steve Ditko was, man. If you look, there's very few pictures of him. He didn't, he was just, man, he was a different dude. Okay. That's the best I can put it. You know, he was different, man. So anywho, he created Spider-Man. He's got that, you got Amazing Fantasy 15. He and Lee created Spider-Man. Jack Kirby gets a lot of credit for Spider-Man because he did that cover that's the cover of Amazing Fantasy 15. Okay, so that classic Spider-Man shot you see there on that issue, Kirby did, but Steve Ditko had already drawn everything inside it, had come up with the costume, the web shooters. Kirby had him using some kind of gun, using a web gun. Okay.
Yeah.
Ditko was like, no, this is stupid. We're going to do it like this. And Stan Lee wanted a Kirby-esque cover. So he had Kirby draw the cover, but dude, Steve Ditko did everything involved in the creation of Spider-Man. The little flashlight signal he had on his belt, you know, the web shooters, that was all Ditko. And of course, then he started his run on Spider-Man, which ran for 32 issues or 33 issues. About that, just really good stuff, man. It's the classic 38 issues, excuse me. It's the classic Spider-Man run. It really is. And if you look at that, you see his art progressing from where it began to where it ended. And I said in our previous podcast, I've been reading a lot of Ditko's Doctor Strange stuff.
Yeah.
And
he invented Doctor Strange as well.
He did. And here was the thing, was in Spider-Man, it was a very human book. Okay. You got Liz Allen and Flash Thompson and all the people at the Daily Bugle. So you have a lot of characters. You have a lot of faces. Mm-hmm. When he did Doctor Strange, it was a very, to use a term from the time, it was very psychedelic.
Yeah.
Okay. Lots of colors, lots of space, lots of trippy stuff. He was so popular on college campuses that the college students at the time were convinced that as they were doing LSD and enjoying the books, Steve Ditko had to be doing LSD to write as he was drawing them and writing them. He never confessed to that. But when you look at some of that stuff, it's not hard to imagine. Okay.
Yeah. And there are stories about what the 60s were like at Marvel. And like, that's how you got Frog Thor.
Yeah.
Was they were literally all just hanging out after work one night and doing psychedelics and came up with the idea of what if Thor was a frog?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know.
So it wouldn't, I wouldn't be surprised.
And he had about a 35, 36 issue run on that. And it started with Doctor Strange's origin in Strange, and these are all in Strange Tales. Okay.
Yeah, a lot of the early Doctor Strange stuff is in these Strange Tales titles.
Yeah, and because at the time Marvel had these Strange Tales, there was 2 or 3 other ones that were basically monster or horror books at the time, and they transformed them into the Human Torch would be in one half, and Doctor Strange would be in the other half. Iron Man was in a half, and Captain America was in the other half.
Yeah, that's where all these characters came from. Is you had Strange Tales, Amazing Fantasy, a handful of others that they did. They were all Tales books.
Yeah, Nick Fury and somebody shared one.
Yeah, which was just how you told these stories, these pulp stories in, you know, all the way through from the early 19 teens until the modern comic book era.
Yeah, and finally somewhere it was Tales to Astonish. I think
Tales to
100
Astonish, yeah.
it was the other one, and that was when they took the Iron Man and Captain America books and just split them, and it became Captain America 101 and Iron Man #1. They just split them up, gave them their own issue, and which their own series, I should say, which was good. But back to Ditko. Again, he started with the origin of Doctor Strange. He was the one who created Doctor Strange. You read all those villains. Nightmare's in the first issue. Help me out, man. You're more familiar with Doctor Strange. Dormammu, Baron Mordo.
Dormammu, Baron Mordo.
Right. Forgive me for butchering the names.
It's okay. It's not an easy one.
Nightmare.
Pretty much all of those. Yeah.
All the classic Doctor Strange villains are introduced
the Ancient One, the Eye of Agamotto, Wong. The Sanctum Sanctorum.
Most of that's in the first issue in Strange Tales 110. And this was all Ditko. Okay, because you go back to the Marvel method, where Lee is coming up with an ideal on half a page or a page, and then Ditko's the one fleshing it out.
Yeah.
And that's a great run, man.
Yeah, and it was definitive for Doctor Strange, because all that psychedelic stuff that goes on there is really the defining and definitive mark of Doctor Strange. I mean, it even gets touched on in the movie when he goes on that, when the Ancient One sends him through the astral plane, and he basically goes on that weird trip. That's all Ditko inspired stuff. That's
Absolutely.
just his art style. And people have tried to recreate that in the years that have passed. But yeah, I mean, if it weren't for Steve Ditko's art, Doctor Strange would not be as well known as he is now.
No, it's Ditko's art that sold that book.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, well, we've already discussed it. I mean, the college kids just loved it. They absolutely loved it. So Ditko never discussed what he left Marvel in '66 for reasons he never discussed. Nobody knows why, man.
We could speculate, but
it was Stan Lee's ego would be the speculation that everybody makes.
Yeah. Not getting paid and Stan Lee's ego.
Yeah, and because by '66, Stan Lee, I think, had been promoted to not only editor-in-chief, but president of the company. And he was like, dude, he was doing campus tours and book tours. And, he was a rock star, literally. And Ditko and Kirby were left back, drawing 2 and 3 and 4 books a month.
Right.
And not getting any of the credit.
They're doing the real work, and Stan Lee's taking all the credit.
Which they wouldn't have cared if they'd gotten paid for it. Right.
But they weren't getting paid either.
Right. Which is absolutely why Jack Kirby left. And we assumed that's why Steve Ditko left too. So then he went to DC. I wasn't aware until I started researching this podcast that he created the Creeper, Hawk and Dove, several other characters at DC.
I knew he created the Question, who I really like. I didn't know about Hawk and Dove, and I didn't realize he's the one that basically turned the Blue Beetle into what we know him as today.
He did, yes.
Yeah, I mean, the Blue Beetle was something totally different back in the day, and then if you're a DC comic fan, you think of the Blue Beetle. What you think of is the revamp that Ditko gave him back in the '60s or '70s.
Yeah, like late '60s, early '70s.
Yeah.
Then I guess I knew this, but I didn't. He returned, much like Jack Kirby, once Stan Lee was gone, he returned to Marvel in the early '80s and had quite a run. Did some stuff with Speedball, did some Avengers Annual, had a long run on Rom the Space Knight, which was a really popular character at the time, and Machine Man, which was in the Deadpool Mercs for Hire series recently.
Yeah. He created Captain Atom, which is a Image character now, I think.
Yeah.
Did some Archie stuff.
Yeah. Then in the late '80s, early '90s, he started going to independent publishers and doing things. Mm-hmm. And dude, it's strange, man, because this whole time he was basically a recluse. I mean, he never did conventions. He never He wouldn't do phone interviews. I think we discussed this somewhere else, maybe in one of our the podcasts after he passed away. If you wanted to be in contact with Ditko, you had to snail mail, and I'm talking a few years ago. Okay, I'm not talking in the 60s. I'm talking in the early 2000s.
Right, in like 2011.
Yes, you had to not email, excuse me. You had to mail a friend of his. If that friend felt that the correspondence was of significance, he would forward it to Steve Ditko. Ditko would reply through the friend. Okay. That's how reclusive this dude was, man.
Yeah, he was. I mean, just to give you an idea, if you go to his Wikipedia page and understand Steve Ditko is even before he passed away, was a titan in the comic book industry. His picture is his senior picture in high school from 1945.
Yeah, there's like that picture, a picture of him at the Marvel offices, maybe two pictures that were taken at the Marvel offices, and that's it.
Yeah,
those are like the only pictures that exist of him. Dude, Google Jack Kirby. There's
tons of pictures of Jack Kirby up until a year or two before he died.
Yeah, they're everywhere, man. Not Ditko, brother. Ditko wanted that dude. As I said, that dude was different. Man.
Yeah, his life mission was to be left alone, and he achieved it.
Yeah. Anywho, that's the work of Steve Ditko. I really enjoyed diving into these Doctor Strange books for the first time. And dude, it is what it is, man. He was a giant. And if you watch that In Search of Steve Ditko, the YouTube video that I posted on the website a week or two ago, probably a couple of weeks ago now, he's really he has influenced a lot of artists. A lot of people got inspiration from him and Jack Kirby, because it was so different from what was coming out at the time.
Yeah, it was very much like Jack Kirby in a way. It was so different than what was out there at the time that it was hugely influential. And I would encourage you to go to Marvel Unlimited and just look up Steve Ditko and read some of the stuff he did. Just glance through and find something you think looks good and read it.
Depending on when you listen to this, they're running a splash page up at the top, which has his works in it. A Steve Ditko creator spotlight that shows his best works and where you can find them in Unlimited. And yeah, man, you know what? There's the Doctor Strange stuff.
I was gonna say, you gotta have the Doctor Strange stuff.
Yeah, but it's more Spider-Man than it is Doctor Strange. There's that issue of Hulk he did. He had a run on the Hulk. Yeah, man, he was good. He
was a big deal. And he was 90, not unexpected, but it's still a blow to the industry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, dive into Steve Ditko when you don't have anything to read, and you will enjoy it.
Yep. That'll pretty much wrap us up. If you want to get in touch with us, you can email us at 6monthsbehind@gmail.com. That's the number 6monthsbehind@gmail.com.
There will be some notes. I'll probably just repost a video and put a link to this Amazing Spider-Man and Doctor Strange issues there so you can find them easily. And that's Steve Ditko, which is the website, www.6monthsbehind.com.
And check out our weekly show, 6 Months Behind. That's our main show where we dissect all of the new comic books that come out in Marvel Unlimited every single week.
Yep. We have a good time doing it.
Yep. All right, guys. We'll see y'all next time.
Peace.